growing up in my family felt like being invisible. Even now, as I sit on the edge of my bed in my cluttered room, the memories swirl around me like a thick fog that refuses to lift. The walls, painted a soft lavender in a feeble attempt to make this space my own, seem to close in tighter as I think back to so many birthdays that felt like cruel jokes. Each year, my sibling stood at the center of attention, swathed in admiration and delight, while I melted into the background, like a whisper lost in a crowded room. Look at her. Isn't she amazing? My mother would beam, eyes sparkling in the glow of 1,000 birthday candles, with my sibling grinning from ear to ear as gifts piled high around them. I'd sit at the edge of the festivities, a silent observer, as if I were a spectator at a show I never signed up for. "Harper, sweetie, come show everyone your card," my father would call out, his voice warm, but the words stung like ice water in my veins. I'd shuffle forward, clutching the crumpled piece of paper I'd made with a few drawn cupcakes and a hastily written happy birthday. I could almost hear the expectations hanging in the air, waiting for the moment when I'd be compared. "You're such a good little artist, aren't you?" But the praise would always be accompanied by a sharp gasp when my sibling opened their presents, brand new gadgets shimmering in bright packages like jewels. "That's so unfair." I had burst out one year, a simmering rage rising in me until it spilled over like soda shaken too hard. The family was gathered around, and I felt their eyes riveted to me in that charged moment. I could sense the awkwardness enveloping the room, all eyes darting between my parents and my sibling, whose eyes widened in shock. What's unfair, Harper?" my mother asked, her voice pitched high with confusion, and I could feel the weight of my father's disapproving glare burning into the back of my neck. "Why are you always looking at my birthday? Why can't you just let me celebrate?" I stood there, heart thundering as they exchanged worried glances, unsure of how to respond. "Sweetheart, we love you." My mother took a step forward, but her words were like stale air, empty and lacking the warmth that should have come with them. "It is just that this is a special day for your sibling." "Yeah, it's my birthday. You don't even care about mine." My voice cracked, the hurt spilling out like the last drop of a well that had been emptied for years. The room fell quiet, a taut string waiting to snap. I could feel the heat of anger flush my cheeks, and at that moment, I glared at my sibling, who stood there, wide-eyed and innocent, as if they had nothing to do with the torrent of emotions that consumed me. Instead, the focus shifted back to my sibling, who was cradling a bright blue gadget that glowed like an alien artifact. "Look, it even has a built-in camera," they exclaimed, oblivious to my struggle, and the applause that followed felt like nails on a chalkboard, every clap puncturing the fragile facade I had built around my heart. I retired to my room, the silence heavy on my shoulders. I slid down to the floor, back pressed against my bed, feeling like a ghost in my own life. The musty smell of old books filled the air as I scanned my tiny sanctuary, posters of rock bands plastered over the walls. The small desk, littered with half-finished sketches and memory photos that had long faded from importance. "Why can't you see me?" I whispered into the silence, longing for acknowledgement, but knowing the emptiness that surrounded me was far more potent than any words of comfort. That day, 11 candles sat quavering atop a store-bought cake I had picked out, indifference dripping from my parents' smiles. The cake was nothing compared to the extravagant spread that had decorated my siblings' table just a week before. "Happy birthday, Harper," my father said, raising a fork to take a bite as if it was an obligatory duty. And my mother chimed in with a throwaway compliment. "You deal with that driving. It sure will come in handy." There was pride on her face, but it felt like a mask, and not a true reflection of how they felt. The car, the one my sibling had received last week, shiny and pristine, with a blue that sparkled under the sun, was what drove the final nail in the coffin of my self-worth. "It's top of the line," my sibling had proudly explained, showing off buttons and features like a magician revealing tricks, and I couldn't help but feel trapped in my little clunker parked outside. "Mine will start eventually," I had muttered under my breath, but no one heard. When they did finally catch wind of my ancient car's plight, they laughed, thinking it was a joke. "It has character," they thought, while I felt like it was a prison I could never escape. That car became the embodiment of my entire existence, barely working, forgotten. On days when I would stare out the window, watching my sibling drive off into the sunset, envy twisted in my gut like a knife. I wished I could punch the surroundings, spill my anger over them like paint on a canvas, but I never did. Instead, I curled myself into a ball on my bed, pretending to read books that did little to quell the growing desire for acknowledgement. I would often tell myself, one day they will see. One day they will notice. But each passing birthday only drove me deeper into the shadows of their easily illuminated lives, reminding me that I was only viewed in relation to my sibling. Other than that, I remained unseen. With each breath, I realized I was no longer just a silent observer. I was evolving, transforming my hurt into a smoldering resolve. I would carve my path marked by their ignorance and my determination. I would find my agency. I would no longer be the footnote in my siblings' extravagant story. And if acknowledgement was what I sought, then I would make them acknowledge me. Even if I had to slip into the darkness first, the attic felt thick with dust and memories, the air heavy with the musty scent of old wood and forgotten history. As I climbed the narrow staircase, each creak beneath my feet seemed to whisper secrets from the past, stories trapped in the confines of this long-neglected space. I pushed the door open and stepped inside, squinting against the dim light streaming in through a small window. Cobwebs clung to the rafters like veils over memories, and I could almost hear the echo of my grandmother's laughter, carefree and vibrant, a stark contrast to my own thoughts. "Just look for something," I muttered to myself, my voice cracking against the stillness. "Anything that shows I was here." I rifled through boxes, peering closely at the labels barely visible through layers of dust. Old school projects, baby clothes that hadn't been worn in years, a collection of holiday decorations. Everything seemed to have an emotional weight, like a chain binding me to the past that I so desperately wanted to break free from. It was oppressive. The memories of family gatherings, where I often felt like a ghost, watching others thrive, while I faded into the background. With each box that I opened, I was met with remnants of a life that had never quite included me. Not valuable enough, I scoffed at the overly sentimental trinkets and photographs. They belonged to a version of life that I could not fully embrace. I was tired of feeling ignored, sad, and overshadowed, trapped in the confines of a role I had never chosen. Then, my fingers brushed against something hard and cold, nestled under layers of yellowed newspaper. My heart raced. I pulled it out, brushing away the dust, revealing an old wooden box with intricate carvings that still held some beauty despite its age. It felt like it belonged to a different world entirely, one where my grandmother thrived, where she was more than just a grandmother. She was a woman of elegance, power, and grace. Could this box hold something of worth? I pried it open, the hinges creaking like the whispers of the attic itself. Inside, nestled on a bed of crimson satin, lay a diamond necklace. Its sparkle was mesmerizing, catching the light filtering through the window, throwing tiny rainbows around the cramped attic space. I felt my breath quicken. This was not just any jewelry. This was the necklace my grandmother used to wear when she was invited to fancy galas and charity events. The kind of life I dreamed of. I picked it up, letting the diamonds glint in my palm. I could hardly believe my eyes. This is worth over $50,000, I whispered, shock mingling with excitement. I could see my neglected childhood, the memories of sitting alone in the corner at family gatherings, twisting my hair in anxious knots. I was always the outsider in my family. This necklace, with its shimmering promise, felt like a key, a way out. A surge of determination rushed through me. This is my way to finally matter, I said aloud, the words feeling foreign but liberating. No more will I be forgotten. The bitterness swelled inside me, changing the narrative of my life. I wasn't just a nearly invisible child. I could take a step toward my own destiny, shape my own life, separate from the shadows that had loomed over me for too long. As reality settled in, I held the necklace tightly, feeling its weight. I imagined what I could do with the money it would bring. A new car, a place of my own, a chance to leave Riverton behind. I can start fresh. I can make them see me, I thought, feeling a flicker of fire within. It was more than just financial independence. It was reclaiming my narrative and finally stepping out of the oppressive weight of neglect. Suddenly, I heard footsteps on the staircase. My heart raced with a mix of anxiety and thrill. What if someone found out? What would they think? I quickly shoved the necklace back into the box, closing its lid just as the door creaked open. Harper, what are you doing up here? I heard a voice slice through the shadows, and I could feel the warmth draining from my cheeks as I turned around to face the intruder. Just looking for some old things, I said, trying to sound casual, though my heart pounded loudly in my ears. Old things. This place is a graveyard, they joked, stepping further into the dim light. It was frustrating that they couldn't seem to understand my urgency. You know, no one cares about what is up here. Just more stuff to toss out. I shot back, my voice more pointed than I intended. Maybe I care. Maybe I want to find something of value. My words hung heavy in the air, and there was a flicker of surprise in their eyes. Fine, but do not get too attached to this junk. It is only going to gather dust until we throw it away. The dismissive tone ignited the fire that was building inside me. It's not junk, I replied fiercely, clutching the box, needing to protect it as if it were treasure. This was my grandmother's. It actually means something. I watched their expressions soften for a moment, but then they shrugged it away, as if to say I was still being foolish. All right then, just don't expect anyone to care. And maybe I don't need anyone to care, I replied more defiantly than I had intended, bitterness seeping into my tone. The moment hung thick, filled with unspoken words, and I felt a rush of empowerment as I realized that my path was clearer than ever, even if it felt laced with shadows. After they left, I closed the lid of the box, fear and excitement swirling together like a tempest inside me. I sank to the floor, the mustiness of the attic wrapping around me like a shroud. There, in that quiet moment, in solitude amid the forgotten, I swore to myself that this diamond necklace, this glimmer of hope, would be at the heart of my revenge against the years of neglect and being unseen. It was time for the world to know my name. The neon sign of my new business flickered warmly in the evening light, a proud beacon that drew the eye of passers-by. Harper's Creations, it declared, my heart swelling each time I read it. This small shop was a labor of love, a sanctuary built from the remnants of the past, a past dominated by neglect and betrayal. Armed with the capital from the necklace, I channeled every ounce of my energy into making this vision a reality. Each brushstroke on the canvas of my dreams seemed to drown out the whispers of a painful childhood. Yet, joy came with a bitter aftertaste that I could not ignore. I vividly recalled the moments leading up to all this, the feeling of disconnect in a family that should have been a source of support. How my siblings' choices had irrevocably changed the dynamics between us. It was at that moment, staggering under the weight of those memories, while rearranging the handcrafted items dotted around my store, that I received a notification that made my heart leap. My sibling had reached out for a loan. I couldn't suppress my smirk when I learned they were turned away. I had heard their confident voice on the phone not long before, filled with delusions of grandeur about their rock-solid business plan. What do you mean denied? Their voice had risen, disbelief mingling with the hint of desperation. You just don't understand. This loan is crucial. It means everything for my future. The banker's composed response had been filled with the kind of professional pity that only the heavily indebted can recognize. I closed my eyes, immersing myself in the sound of glass clinking as I finished setting up the display. The memory of my siblings' former riches, that elaborate lifestyle crafted on the back of easy money now, felt like a distant mirage. The sweet aroma of vanilla and cinnamon wafting around me felt like a divine testament to how sweet victory could taste. But tonight was not merely about crafting pottery or arranging my creative displays. It was about the bigger picture, about navigating the dark corners of life where I could finally take a stand. The atmosphere was lively, bustling with chatter, as nearly everyone in Riverton flocked to see my launching event unfold. There were cookies to sample, and a small assortment of my pieces, all of which I wore like badges of honor. But as I peered out the glass storefront, I spied a figure I recognized all too well, standing outside the crowd, my sibling. Their expression was a mix of confusion and frustration, with their designer jacket melting seamlessly into the chaos of indistinct faces. Quite the contrast to my humble jeans and well-worn apron. I could hardly contain my glee at the thought of them watching as all I'd built blossomed before their eyes. Suddenly, the door swung open, making a jingly sound that echoed like a bell tolling out for the guilty. My sibling stepped in, feigning a casual stance, though their eyes flickered over my creations with disinterest. "Well, look at this place," they said, their voice dripping with false enthusiasm. "Didn't picture you going this route, but I guess it's better than nothing." "Is that really why you came?" I shot back, my tone sharper than I intended. "Or are you just here to gloat?" Their lips pursed, and for a moment I thought I saw the wall come down, revealing a flicker of vulnerability. "I wondered if we could talk," they said, glancing around. "Not here, though. Why not? I built this." I gestured at the shop, as if it could physically separate us. "This is everything I made while you threw away your fortune." "I made mistakes," they snapped. "But I cannot just sit and watch everything I worked for slip away." "Worked for? You squandered your chances." The heat of my words washed over us like steam on a cold day, thickening the air. My heart raced, a twin sensation of anger and satisfaction pulsing through my veins. "Listen, Harper." They took a step closer, drawing the eyes of some curious customers. "I may have been irresponsible, but we can sort this out. I can help you license your creations. I've got connections who can." I laughed, a sound so foreign it caught even me off guard. "Help me? Is this the part where you want me to drop everything and trust you again?" Their expression faltered, and I felt a rush of power at finally confronting them. "You never trusted me in the first place. Remember when I was the one who had to pick up the pieces after your extravagant parties? The ones that ended in me cleaning up the chaos while you sat pretty with your friends." The stinging memory lingered, and I pressed on. "My capital is built on the shards of your mistakes, and now you want to bargain with me. You want help. I need your help, not the other way around." Their voice rose, hinting at desperation, the way the tension could snap between us breaking through the polite facade. "I thought we were family. We used to trust each other." "Used to," I echoed, the weight of the word menacing. "I'm sorry, but that trust is gone, and it's never coming back." In that instant, I felt something change within me. I was no longer a child crushed under the weight of their entitlement. I was the architect of my own life. The joy of creating washed over me once more, erasing the bitterness, but not the hurt entirely. "So why don't you face the consequences of your actions?" I said, the words almost leaving a bitter taste in my mouth. "Learn what it truly means to be responsible." The silence that followed hung heavy between us. Customers began to whisper, eyes darting back and forth like spectators at a tennis match, eager to see how this familial confrontation would unfold. I could almost hear my heartbeat echo with slivers of both anticipation and vengeance. As I turned to arrange some items more purposefully on a shelf, I felt a weight lift off my shoulders. I was no longer a pawn in their game. I had taken my first real step toward reclaiming my life, and it felt as exhilarating as a hidden treasure finally uncovered. The day finally arrived, the day I had been waiting for. It was a warm afternoon in Riverton, the sunlight streaming through the windows of our family home, casting lines of brightness on the worn wooden floor. I could feel the excitement bubbling inside me as I cradled the neatly bound pages of my business plan in my arms. This was it. I had secured a loan of my own, a feat that my sibling had struggled to achieve, and I had every intention of making that clear to everyone gathered today. As I walked downstairs, the cacophony of voices grew louder, the scent of cooking wafting through the air, mingling with the faint scent of jasmine from the garden outside. My parents were gathered in the living room, laughter and casual conversation filling the space. When I stepped in, the atmosphere shifted slightly. I could sense their eagerness to celebrate that which was traditionally celebrated: a graduation, a new job, a milestone. What they didn't know was that this celebration would be different. "Harper, you finally made it. Come sit with us," my mother called out, her face radiating warmth, always quick to smile. "I have something important to share." My voice was steady, but beneath the surface, my heart raced, the adrenaline coursing through me. I wanted them to hear every word, to absorb the reality of what I had achieved. I shifted my weight from one foot to the other, and when they settled into an expectant silence, I took a deep breath and began. "So, I have been working on something big. I have a business plan that just got approved, and I have secured a loan to start my own venture." The moment those words left my mouth, the room thickened with an unspoken tension. My father's eyebrows shot up in surprise, while my mother's smile flickered disbelief, flashing across her features. "A business plan? Really? That sounds incredible," came my mother's tentative encouragement, but there was something else beneath it, a hint of skepticism. My sibling, sitting across from me with legs crossed, wore a look of confusion that quickly morphed into something darker. I could feel the envy radiating from them, a palpable energy that buzzed in the space between us. The cool metal of the ring on my finger brushed against my palm as I clutched my business plan closer, ready to unveil my secret. "Yes, it's incredible," I continued with growing confidence. "You remember all that junk we sorted through in the attic? The old furniture, the boxes of forgotten memories. You mean the stuff we were supposed to throw out?" My sibling interrupted, their tone laced with sarcasm. I smiled, my heart thudding loudly in my chest. Well, those so-called junk items turned out to be quite valuable. I sold a few antique pieces online, and that helped me fund my venture. It was a steep learning curve, but I did it. The shock that covered my parents' faces was priceless. "That junk?" my father questioned, still processing my words. "That attic clutter funded your business?" "Yes, I am starting a sustainable home goods store. It's something I've always wanted to do." The pride in my voice surprised even me. It felt like a shield against the resentment that had built up over the years. I figured if I could breathe life back into those old items, I could do the same with my dream. It's about so much more than just the pieces I found. It's about reclaiming what was once lost. My sibling rolled their eyes, a slight scoff escaping their lips. So, you're telling us that the junk was worth something. I still don't get how you plan to make this work. I looked past them, focusing on my parents' faces, yearning for their support. It's not just about starting a business. It's about proving that I can do this on my own. For years, I felt overshadowed by you, by the expectations set on us, and by the apartment of trophies you brought home. But this is my chance to write my own story, outside of your success. Your own story, my sibling repeated, the words thick with disdain. You think this is some fairy tale, Harper. It's not a fairy tale. It's real, and it's happening, I shot back, my pulse quickening. For once, I'm taking control. For a flicker of a moment, a silence enveloped the room, punctuated only by my siblings' shallow breaths. My mother's expression softened, and I knew she wanted to understand, to support me, despite the wobbling uncertainty in her voice. Harper, that sounds ambitious, but you have to consider what you're getting into. It's not just about selling things online. You will need to manage inventory, marketing, finances. I interjected. I have a plan. I have done the research, calculated the costs, and mapped out everything. I am prepared. My confidence filled the room, begging for validation among my family. And what about your job? My sibling chimed in, attempting to shift the mood, glaring at me with that unspoken challenge, looking to bring me down a notch. You can't just up and leave your responsibilities. I can and I will. I'm not throwing everything away. I will learn, improve, and grow. I want to create something meaningful, I said, my voice steady now, the conviction washing away my fears. The air was thick with realization as it settled among us, a deep breath extending across the gathered family members. My sibling's face twisted in disbelief, and I could see the jealousy morphing like a storm cloud. How could you possibly think you can succeed where others have failed? They hissed, eyes narrowing. Because it's my journey, I replied, my heart pounding with renewed strength. I have carried the weight of expectations for too long. I am taking my light back. I looked at my parents once more, feeling emboldened. This is my path, one I plan to carve for myself. For a moment, I saw understanding flicker in my mother's eyes, pride beginning to bloom as my father leaned in closer. I realized then that they were beginning to see me, not as the sibling always in the background, but as Harper Bennett, the woman ready to step into her light. My sibling, though visibly shaken, could not hide the resentment penned up within. But as my parents exchanged hopeful glances, the crack in their unity began to widen, and I reveled in the feeling of having taken a step towards my destiny. This was not just about a business. It was about reclaiming my identity, carving my story, and ultimately taking hold of what had always been mine in the months that followed. The transformation in my life was undeniable, and I could barely recognize the person I had once been. The once forgotten child, tucked away in the corners of my family's narrative, had emerged as a successful entrepreneur, standing tall and illuminating the new path I had forged. The walls of my old self, once heavy and confining, had crumbled away, replaced by the vibrant colors of confidence and achievement. I remember staring out of the large windows of my office, sunlight streaming through and wrapping around me like a warm embrace. The bustling sounds of Riverton below, horns honking, people chatting, and the occasional laugh filled me with an exhilarating sense of belonging. "Harper, can you come here for a moment?" My mother called out one sunny afternoon, her voice surprisingly warm. It was strange to hear that tone directed at me after years of feeling more like an afterthought. I stilled my movements, my heart racing slightly. I walked towards the living room, where she sat on the couch, her eyes fixed on the latest magazine featuring my business on the front cover. I could hardly contain the grin that threatened to break free as I noticed the pride shimmering in her gaze. "I just wanted to say how proud we are of you," she said slowly, her words almost hesitant, as if she was testing them out for size. "Your article has gotten a lot of attention. People are really talking about you, Harper." My heart swelled. "Thank you, Mom. It means a lot to hear you say that." The past echoed faintly in my mind, reminiscent of all those times I wished for a sliver of recognition growing up. "I have worked hard, and I believe it is finally paying off." She smiled softly, her expression betraying a hint of regret mixed with admiration. "We didn't see it back then, but your passion, it's infectious. Your father and I were just talking about how we underestimated you. We really regret that." I took a breath to steady myself. "You did what you thought was best, I suppose," I replied, aiming for a calmness I barely felt. The truth simmered beneath my words, but I also recognized my own desire for their approval. It was a complex mixture of emotions swirling inside me. All I wanted was to be seen. From the corner, my sibling piped up. "You have no idea how many people are trying to get in touch with you, Harper. I have friends who are, well, they are interested in your company. I mean, it sounds silly, but maybe I could help you." The desperation was thick in their voice, the edge of hope shining through like a glimmering thread woven into a tapestry of regret. I hesitated, weighing my options like a delicate balance. "What do you want in return?" I said, raising an eyebrow. "Because I don't trust easily, not anymore." Their face flushed, and a moment of silence hung between us, thick with tension. "I just want to be part of this, part of your success. You are doing this amazing thing, and it feels like it tore us apart when we could have been united. Can't we fix this?" I took a step back, shaking my head as I crossed my arms. "You had your chances, and you cast me aside when I needed you. I learned to rely on myself because of it." The fire of my words ignited in me, fueled by years of anger, disappointment, and at the core, the need for redemption both for myself and for them. "I can help," they exclaimed, desperation creeping into their tone. "You can't do this all alone. It's okay to accept help." The rush of old wounds mixed strangely with the thrill of having come so far. "Your help came so late," I pointed out, my voice steady. "While I floundered, you chose the easy road." I turned those moments into fuel for my fire, and trust me, it burned hot enough to turn those rusty family ties into something far sharper. My parents exchanged glances, unsure of how to navigate the tension crackling like electricity in the air. The moment felt tense yet liberating as I reveled in the righteousness of my own journey. From the moment I decided to fight for my worth, I climbed mountains you never saw me scuba diving beneath. "I don't need you," I said quietly, my words piercing the silence like daggers. "But Harper," my mother started, her voice a whisper now, "you can't hold on to that pain forever. Each of us made mistakes. That's what being human is." Her gentle tone took me off guard as I pictured a world where I could let go a little. "I know," I finally replied, "but I will not let myself be a backup option any longer. I know what I am worth now." In that moment, I felt the weight of years lift from my shoulders, as if I had shed my old skin like a serpent. The air felt lighter, yet filled with the tantalizing taste of freedom. I'm proud to be the person I've become. It took me a long time to find that pride, and I refuse to let it be dulled by anyone's doubts. Silence settled in, an unfamiliar and uncomfortable quiet that seemed to vibrate around us. They shifted uncomfortably, and for the first time, I felt a sense of closure wash over me. I didn't need to chase after their approval. I had fulfilled my own destiny, and it tasted sweet. "Maybe you can come to my next launch," I said, a smile creeping onto my face. "Just to see what your doubting daughter has accomplished without you." Their expressions brightened, a light flickering in their eyes as they nodded almost in unison. "We would love that," my mother exclaimed, a sense of warmth radiating through the earlier tension. I could sense my own brows unfurling, a sense of peace blossoming inside me as I grappled with the possibility of building new bridges. "I'm glad to hear that. I think it's worth a shot." With that, I felt the thrilling satisfaction of reclaiming my worth rush through my veins, buzzing like fresh electricity. I wasn't just free of the past. I was a force of my own making, brilliant and undeniable. The silence no longer felt suffocating. Instead, it became a canvas upon which I could paint my future. And in the eye of the storm that was my family, I stood tall, unwavering, and ready to shine.